All right, so now let's get to the technology, because I know that's really why you're here, to see Harry the Star and see ArcGIS in action. So we're going to talk about, again, unlocking the value of ArcGIS, and we do that through deploying apps, right? So the first one we're going to go over is ArcGIS Pro. Then we'll talk about, again, that pairing of apps. So actually you'll see that a lot today, but we're going to talk about pairing them together specifically for the field operations workflow, because most organizations have people in the field that need to have access to GIS, and so we'll show how you can link multiple apps together to support more than actually just the data collection. Then we'll talk about sharing and collaboration, not only ways that you can share and collaborate with your work with others, but how you can enable others to also use GIS to share their work and collaborate with others. And then lastly, we're going to talk about spatial analytics and using that to turn data into insights. Okay, so like I mentioned, we have lots of different apps. The easiest way to find out about all the apps is to go to this website, their Apps for Everyone website, which is esri.com/apps. And we have them broken into 4 different categories. You see here at the bottom: apps for the field, apps for the office, apps for the community, and then app builders. So if you click on each one of those, you can dive into those different collections. And then we've also, this came out in Arc News last year, we had this poster called the Symphony of Apps. And this is a decision support tree that actually helps you decide which app to use. So you can answer or ask some questions, look at the answers, and it'll drive you to the right app. But what I want to do is make sure you realize that we have a lot of apps, and it's sometimes hard for you guys to keep up on all of them and what they all do, right? And that's what those trading cards can help a little bit with. But that's our job, right? Harry's job is to know all of those apps and how to deploy them, and how to help people do that, right? So don't spin your wheels, and don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out, well, should I use Collector? Should I use Survey 123? Which one of these do I use? Again, partner with your Esri account team. Just pick up the phone, drop us an email and say, hey, I need to do fire hydrant inspections. What's the best tool to do that? We will go ahead and engage with you, help you how to do it, show you how to do it. We can even get a sample of your data, maybe demonstrate that to you, right?
Right, yeah, so like Adam said, I'm a solution engineer, and Amadea here is a solution engineer as well, and this is what we get paid to do, is to figure out these apps. Just call us. Sometimes we're sitting there waiting for the phone to ring, so you would help us out by just talking to us and letting us help you make the right decision quickly.
Yeah, you guys have enough to do rather than having to study all the different apps that we're producing. All right, so now let's talk about the first one, which is ArcGIS Pro. It is the next-gen desktop GIS. Everybody here, if you've got access to ArcGIS Desktop, then you have access to ArcGIS Pro. It is the premier professional GIS application. It allows you to do advanced data management, cartography, and spatial analysis. You can import all kinds of different formats, do analysis, you can author services, and so forth. It's very powerful. It runs side by side with ArcMap. So if you're not using ArcGIS Pro, now how many people here are already using ArcGIS Pro? Show of hands, please. Awesome. All right, well, if you're not, you need to. And it's just that simple. It runs side by side with ArcMap, so there's really no reason to wait. You can go ahead and install it right now, and you can start by importing an MXD and starting to get used to it. We've got lots of different ways to learn how to use it. We've got books and tutorials and videos and training and all kinds of things. So, all right, without further ado, what I'd like to do is hand it over to Harry, and he's going to show us some tips and tricks and some information about why you should go pro.
Yes, thank you, Adam. So yes, here is ArcGIS Pro. So I've been using ArcGIS Pro for a while now, and I just want to share with you some of the tips and tricks that I learned during the process of learning Pro, as well as some of the things I've heard you, our users, say. So there's a couple of things I want to start off with, just so you understand. ArcGIS Pro is a context-sensitive application. What that means is it shows you the right tool at the right time. So for example, in my contents pane, when I click on building footprints, a couple of things automatically happen. First of all, my building footprints are blue. That means it's the active layer inside my contents pane. And because of that, the 3 new tabs that appeared on the top directly affect my building footprints. So under the Appearance tab, this is where I can adjust things like the transparency. We have the Labeling tab to adjust the labels, and even a tab to look at the fields that are part of this feature class. Now notice nothing is covering my map at this time. It's all up in the ribbons. But if I wanted to dive deeper into any one of these buttons, I could just click something like the Field button, and it'll open up a new window, and I can search on owner and filter directly through all the attributes of that one layer. And I loved this part of ArcGIS Pro because when I was working at a city, our parcel layer, I swear it had like 60 different attributes on it because everybody wanted their own thing. And this is great to really filter through and find what you need fast. Now remember, it's context sensitive. So if I click on this topographic base map, or vector tile base map, which is new at 1.4, you'll see that my tabs have changed. I only have one currently, and it's called the Appearance tab. Now as our vector tiles become more mature and we continue to develop on them, we'll be adding more and more tools at each release of Arcgis Pro. So the way I learned this was always look to the left and then look up, because the left is the contents pane and up top is your tab. So whatever you're clicking on in the contents pane is what the tab up top is now reflecting of. The second thing that I really want to point out is that Arcgis Pro is a project-based application. And that means in one project, you can have multiple maps. So here's one about editing. You can also have scenes. So 3D and 2D is built directly inside of Arcgis Pro. There's no need to go to a separate application now. You can also have multiple layouts. And this has been requested for a very, very long time by many of you in the audience and all over the United States and the world to have multiple layouts be directly inside of one project, and it's now there. The other thing is that Arcgis Pro is connected to the rest of your organization. So I've already logged in with my identity, and you can see that in the upper right-hand corner. It has my username up there. And when I click on this next tab called Portal, what I'm connecting to is my organization. So here's everything that I own that belongs to me, from 3D to some LiDAR data and so forth. I can also see all the groups that I'm a member of, such as the drone tower inspection, and all the different all the different layers in that one group. Now, I'm connected to the rest of the world. So if I search for trees, I'm searching all organizations that have shared information publicly to the world. And you can see there's a ton on trees. Now, here's a little tip for you guys. To filter this to only look within your organization, you have to go to this hamburger control. And yes, it is actually called a hamburger control. And then you search my organization. Now, when I hit the trees, you'll see I've narrowed my search to only things that are in my org. And you can see my different layer packages and even my maps on tree inspections. The other part of our platform is this thing called the Living Atlas, and you have access to this today. So you can go back and start using this. There's over 5,000 different layers that Esri manages and maintains, but we don't stop there. We ask and sometimes really, really want you to provide your authoritative data into the Living Atlas, so that way people can have confidence in the data sets that they find when they search the Living Atlas. So for example, I'm going to look at a category under demographic and lifestyle called spending and behaviors. And I'll look for like fruit. So what's available is a bunch of maps and layers. Here's ones about how much money people spend on fruits and vegetables. And this goes down to a block group layer. You have this. So when Adam talked about that value of spatial analysis, I mean, adding this layer to that spatial analysis may bring more value to what you're trying to do, especially if you're looking at something like food desert or accessibility to supermarkets. That could be very, very powerful. So that's the other thing I want to point out, that it's connected to your organization all the time, makes that exchange of information very, very easy. All right. So now, how many of you do editing? All right. So editing inside of Arcgis Pro. There's a couple of things a couple tips I want to share with you. So I'll open up a new map called Editing Map. So in this map, I have some building footprints or lack thereof here in the middle. And I want to start editing building footprints. Well, you do not start or stop an edit session inside of Arcgis Pro. If you have access or permissions to edit the data, you can do that. Here's how it's done. First of all, you need to make sure the layer is turned on. Building footprints is turned on. Second, we can see that there are different ways to share, or different ways to look at the data in my map. There's the data source view. You can look at the list by selection, but there's also this one, list by editing. It's within this location where you have to turn on the layer you like to edit. So now that my layer is editable, when I go to the Edit tab and I want to create a new building footprint, there it is. So I'll use this one tool of create right angles, and I'll just do some heads-up digitizing. Now, there's also this really nice snapping environment inside of Arcgis Pro. It's very in your face, which could be a very good thing when you're learning how to build building footprints. I'll right-click and do a finish in square. That way my building is built of right angles, and that's it. So that's how you start editing inside of ArcGIS Pro. So let's do a couple of more edits really quickly. So I want to turn off my building footprints and turn on my facility sites. Can anybody tell me why my facility sites are not turning on? And go ahead and raise your hand.
Anybody?
Anybody? Yes, ma'am. I need the permissions to edit?
Yep.
No, that's not quite right. But what I think you're going to say is I need to turn the layer on under the draw view to be able to see it. All right, was that what you're going to go say next? Okay, good, because you just won the ArcGIS Pro book for that. There you go. So yes, remember, the drawing view turns things on and off. So there are my building footprints turned off in my facility sites. The drawing view does that. When you're in the edit view, that just tells you what you're editing. So in this case, I'm editing my facility sites. So I want to modify this polygon so that way I don't have this gap right here. So I'll use the modify button on the edit tab, and I'll do this align features. Now I do not want align features. I want align edge. I really love this tool for two main reasons. First of all, it's very contextual. You'll see when I hover over the line, I have a dashed line and a solid line. The dashed line always snaps to the solid line always snaps to the dashed line. So watch what happens when I click. That's it. I have coincident boundaries. No overlaps, no slivers, nothing. It's that quick. So now I want to do the same down here, but I can't align this to another polygon because I don't have one right here. So what I want to do is align this feature class to my parcel boundaries. And all I have to do is turn on parcel boundaries in my edit view, and now they participate in the map topology. There you go. So did anybody catch what I said? A map topology. In ArcGIS Pro, map topologies are turned on by default, and you can see that appear in the upper left-hand corner. Now, if you have your own geodatabase topology, that's cool. We still work with that perfectly well. But you don't have to build your map topologies from scratch. We're already on by default. So now I want to do one more edit. And I'm going to use my bookmarks because I want to tell you about bookmarks. So you can have many maps inside of a single project and many bookmarks, as you see here, for different maps. You can use any one of the bookmarks at any time. And that's really powerful. So I'll go ahead and just use this one to show editing over here. We're going to edit some addresses and some building entrances. So the first thing I'm going to do is adjust what I can edit to be site addresses and entrances. And then I'll go ahead and just turn them on. So what we have, or what we do not have, is an address point for this parcel and the building entrances. So what I'm going to do is edit multiple feature classes with a single sketch. Okay? 2 feature classes with 1 sketch. So I'll come back to my edit, and I'll hit the create. And right here, what we have is an editing template. And these are something that are available in ArcGIS Pro. This template, when I click the very first time, I'm creating an address point. Every subsequent click is a building entrance into the building. And then the final click is the driveway for this parcel. So I'll go ahead and add some information. Site address is 1234. Address number is 380. Anybody want to guess what the road name would be? New York. All right. So now my first click is an address point. And that's a single feature class. Now my subsequent clicks are all the entrances into the building. And this is a completely separate feature class. And then my final click will be at the driveway entrance. So let's look at what we have here. So again, 1 point for site address and multiple points for my entrances layer. Now, one of the things that's always been available, no matter what version of desktop you're using, is the idea of global updates. And I think that's a huge tip I always like to tell. So by clicking on just entrances and then editing information such as entrance ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, site address ID, is 380, and this is captured on a map. All these will now be updated appropriately. And what's nice is that if you have a relationship class, that's still managed and maintained through this edit session. So that's how we edit multiple feature classes with a single sketch using an editing template that you can create on your own. So how many worked in a versioned environment? Okay, so really pay attention to this one. So how do you get to the versioning tab? Well, the way you do it is you go back to the contents pane and you click on your data source view. And when you click on the database or the geodatabase that you're using, if versioning is enabled, the versioning toolbar appears, or the versioning tab appears. It's right there. And this is where you can do your reconcile, your post, and so forth. So that's how you get to it. Remember, it's a context-sensitive application. So it's not going to show you the versioning tools until you're ready to look at versioning. And you do that by clicking on the geodatabase that has the versioning enabled. Now, I love this term, sharing is caring. And Arcgis Pro loves to care and share. And it has its tab called Share. And it's really important to just see how things can be shared nowadays. So we have our project package and our map package. These are things that you're probably used to because they've been around for quite some time. But we can now share information as a web map and a web layer. You may remember Jack talking about services oriented and how Pro consumes and generates services. Well, this is exactly what he was talking about. So I can click on one of my layers, such as building footprints, and I can share this as a web layer. And I'll have my dialog box to be able to share. I can give it a name. If I wanted to make this into a vector tile, we can do that because that's now available in Arcgis Pro 1.4. And I'll give it a summary. Give it a tag as well. Editing, we'll call this buildings. And then I can analyze and then just publish it. Oh, I'm saved of it. Sure, I'll save them. So with ArcGIS Pro, sharing is very straightforward. And because it's a multi-threaded 64-bit application, I can continue working. If I wanted to, I can continue my edit sessions, or I can open up new maps. It doesn't matter. It's just going to run in the background. So I can continue to do my other day-to-day activities while that geoprocessing task is running. So Adam, that was just a quick tutorial on some of the tips and tricks I've learned using Pro as well.
All right, but one of the things that Pro can do that's special is that it can also work with 3D, right? You showed us that there are multiple maps and some of them had 3D in there.
Yes, I did.
So can you show us how to make some 3D data?
I think I'll do that, yes.
Awesome.
So let me go ahead and open up an existing project that I have. It's a project called 2D to 3D. Now here's what's really nice. You can turn on auto save for your edits inside of Arcgis Pro. I didn't have that feature turned on, so I'm being asked if I want to look and save any of these edits. Now, I don't want to save these ones, or these edits, so I'll do that. Don't want to save the project. And I'll open up my 2D, 3D. So in this map, I have just some typical layers that each of you probably have. Building footprints and trees, right? How many of you have a tree layer in your organization? Yeah, exactly. This is very common data. But what I'm going to do is symbolize 2D data in 3D. I'm just going to symbolize data in 3D, okay? I'm not going to be creating stuff right now. And to do that, it's very straightforward. I'll go to the View tab and just hit the Convert button. So now I'm converting this 2D flat map into a scene. And now you can see as I pan and zoom, I'm in a 3D environment and I can see all this information. But remember, this is just a regular feature class, no z-values, it's not multi-patch feature class. So what I can do though is take my building footprints, drag it into my 3D layers, and because I clicked on that layer, I have this appearance tab, I can extrude on a base height of, let's say, 20 feet. Boom, there it is. My building footprints are now symbolized in 3D. And one of the other tools that we've created under the measure option is this measure vertical. And this is a tool I want to show you because what it does is it gives you a disk that allows you to measure something in 3D. And it's really, really powerful to be able to do that. So that measure tool is there for you. So this is just symbolizing data that you already have. Everybody has data like this in 3D. Now, I could continue to do the same with my trees, for example. But what Esri did is we created this idea of presets. So we realized that many of you have layers and you want to symbolize them in 3D. So we took on the task of creating some symbology to make these trees look realistic. So I'll just click on this preset of realistic trees. I'll navigate to my feature class of trees. And we're looking for 3 attributes on the trees. So if you have these attributes on your tree data right now, you can do this. So if you have an attribute for the tree type, right, which I call tree genius in my schema. If you have a category for tree height and also crown width, you can do this. So what we're looking at is that tree genius, and we're actually symbolizing the trees based upon that type and based upon that height. And again, this is just regular old feature classes that I know each of you have. And this is how we can begin to use 3D, and we can share this, we can print this, we can even put this in another map. But how many of you have LiDAR data? Okay, how many of you are using it to get the most value out of it all day, every day?
Yeah, everybody has LiDAR data and not hardly anybody uses it,
Yeah.
right? And it's expensive stuff, right? So talk about unlocking value, you need to find ways to use your LiDAR data, right? And so, 3D is no longer a luxury. It's really becoming a necessity, especially in applications like planning, economic development, emergency management, and so forth. So if you've got this LiDAR data, what Esri's done, in the past when you were creating 3D, you had to create every building and tree by hand, right? But now we've created some tools that Harry's going to show us that you can automatically extract every building and tree in your entire city or county from your LiDAR.
Exactly.
So really, everybody can do 3D now.
So I'm going to turn off the layers that we just were looking at. And I'll show you, here's that LiDAR data. Here's that point cloud that I have for Naperville. So what Esri has done is we've created some tasks. So if you go to our solutions website, which is solutions.arcgis.com, click on the gallery tab, and this is important, search on the word scene, S-C-E-N-E, scene. That's the word you want to search on. You'll find what's called the local government 3D base map. So if you want to find out more information about what this base map or what this package does, it's all written out here, and we have videos and other tutorials. But basically, here's what it'll do. It'll make something as generic as lollipop-looking trees all the way down to something as detailed as this, where you put facades and balconies and windows on it. Now, I've already downloaded this task, and I have it installed. So let me show you what that looks like. So under my project pane, there's a folder called task. So here are the different tasks that are available when you download that solution template.
So real quick here. So tasks are very important things. So they're one of the things that sets ArcGIS Pro apart. There are ways that you can take standard operating procedures. If you want everybody to do, every time they have to do a certain procedure, I want them to do it this step, then this step, then this step in this order. You can record them, and then you can deploy that out, and then it becomes like a wizard. And it actually walks everybody through doing those steps in that order. So it cuts down, it makes efficiency go up, it cuts down on errors, so it helps with your QA, QC, and it creates like a standard operating procedure. So another great reason for pros or tasks.
Yeah, and I like the way you said that. It's almost like you're building a wizard for somebody, because that's really what you're doing. You can record your steps when you build a task. So let's look at what one of these tasks are. So here in the second step, publish level of detail 1, and that's a very generic facade on buildings. You'll see that the first step is to calculate building heights. So there's this dialog that appears that you can configure. And again, this is like Esri having a 3D expert over your shoulder. We've already configured everything for you. I'm going to select my 2D buildings layer. I've already created a digital terrain and a digital surface model from my LiDAR. That was actually the step 1. And then I'll just hit finish. So what this is doing right now is it's looking at the digital surface model and the digital terrain model and subtracting the two together. The difference between them is your building height, because the LiDAR points are on top of your roof and then the LiDAR points are on the ground. And that's what this task is doing. And it's going to now append a field to my buildings feature class that has that height value to it. So we'll go ahead and let this finish running here. There we go, and it's done. So now I could go through all 6 steps, but we want to get you out of here by noon. So I've pre-calculated many of the steps. So if I go into my portal and I search my content for LOD3, here is a service. It's a 3D service of level of detail 3 buildings. So I'm going to just add to my current map. And I'll turn off my LiDAR data. So remember, Jack again said it's a services-oriented architecture. So this is just a service of 3D buildings that are available. So these buildings were generated just from the building footprints I had and running those tasks. And then if we turn on our tree data with this, we can now see in more context the entire landscape of the city. And that's how easy it is to begin to take advantage of the LiDAR that you may have sitting around in a cabinet somewhere. So we have a couple more demonstrations to get through before the break, but we'll take the questions right after the break.
So are those individual buildings, individual objects? Or do you have to then separate them? Or is that...
This is now a 3D multi-patch feature class that was generated with that tool.
It uses your building footprints and then appends the LiDAR data to it, so they stay separate and they're all individual, just like the rest of the GIS.
Yep.
Correct.
Right, my building footprints were individual polygons.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we need to keep going. So we'll take your questions at the break.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right.
I think that was it. Yeah.
Cool, Harry. All right. Thanks a lot. All right. So some key takeaways for ArcGIS Pro. It's the foundational app for really what you need to do on the desktop, whether it be data management, map authoring, advanced visualization, your spatial analysis, and your web integration. What I want to get across to you is that ArcGIS Pro is designed to make your life easier. So we talked to the ArcGIS Pro development team when we were putting this seminar together, and their goal is that when they're porting technology from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro, it's not simply porting it as is. They want to port it and make it great. So they want to make the user experience great. So everything you can do in Map that's in Pro, it should be easier. It should be fewer clicks. It should run faster because it's 64-bit and multi-threaded and so forth. So I promise you that if you start to use ArcGIS Pro, you should find yourself working faster and getting more done and fewer clicks, right? And the other one is 3D. So again, 3D is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. There's people in your organization and the public that want access to 3D data. No longer do you have to manually create every building and tree. You can run this process that we've created with LiDAR data to automatically create an entire 3D base map of every building and tree for your city or county. And again, that extracts a lot of value out of your LiDAR data. So reach out to your team, create your Esri account team. If you've got lots of desktop users and you need to work on a migration plan to get them onto Pro, do that. But it should start now. And again, they can run side by side. You can import an MXD and really get started quickly.